How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Rads, of course, the East Midlands derby this Friday. Of course, obviously, we know that we've got a history of playing another team in the East Midlands, but I don't think we should shy away from this one. It's always an interesting game. The first time we're playing them in a while, obviously, Leicester against Forest. I'm very happy to be joined by Leicester fan Ant. Go and check out his channel, everybody. There'll be a link in the description and in the title. How you doing, Ant? Welcome.
Yeah, all good, mate. Good to be talking to you again. I was worried we wouldn't be making this preview this year because the end of last season got a little bit hairy, but we're here, we're back up, and enjoying life back in the Premier League so far.
Yes, everyone go and check out Ant's channel as well. By the way, we did a preview on his channel too, so go and check that out if you want to see 2 previews for the game. That would be amazing. So yeah, I think the obvious place to start really is from a Forest fan point of view. Tell us a little bit about Leicester and how you've started. I mean, obviously we spoke about it a little bit, but how do you overall sum up how the season's been so far for you?
It's strange because we're 14th in the league, and for a newly promoted team, you think, yeah, that's really well, and there's a decent points gap from Leicester to the bottom 3. I think it's 5 points at this stage, which is very good. But I almost look at it and I don't know. I feel like you need to take it with a pinch of salt, but I almost look at it and think it could be so much more because we went 2-0 up against Palace and drew 2-2 and right at the end of the game. We drew with Arsenal with them. We lost to Arsenal with them scoring in the 94th minute. So it's like we've started the season in a really good, with some really good results, back-to-back wins as well. Obviously, the Southampton comeback and beating Bournemouth at home. But I look at it and think, what if those results against Palace and if we could have held on against Arsenal? But on the flip side, you can very easily go, well, what if Southampton could finish their dinner? We would have been 4-0 down at half time. What if the Bournemouth striker, I can't think of his name when we played them, wasn't a toenail offside? So it's one of those, you know what I mean? You can, as much as you can look in the positive of, what if we'd seen out these games, there's always a flip side of that, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely. We spoke quite at length on your channel actually about the Steve Cooper connection, which I'm sure we're all interested to hear a Leicester take on that. Obviously, Forest, his time kind of came to an end. He did an unbelievable job with us to get us promoted, and I'll always have respect for him for that reason. But yeah, it obviously had to come to an end, and I think in hindsight it was the right decision, definitely, from where we are now. But yeah, how do you feel overall about how Cooper's doing at Leicester? Because obviously it's been a bit of a controversial one, hasn't it?
It's one of those, I want to give him a chance, I want to give him time. And as I said, 14th in the league for a newly promoted team. I don't think you can moan at this stage. That he seems to be getting there and seems to be starting to understand his best 11 and starting to understand sort of the strengths of this team. But I wasn't sold on him at the time he was appointed. I'm still not massively convinced, but I want to give him time. I don't see the point at this stage of the season, people throwing their toys out the pram saying, get him out, get a new manager in. Any manager needs a little bit of time and I think a little bit of patience. And if we were losing game after game after game and there was no positives you could see, I think that would be a fair point and a fair way to be looking at it. But we're not. We're competitive in every game we're playing. We're coming off the back of 2 very good wins, obviously very different wins, a clean sheet at home against Bournemouth and then against Southampton, winning it in the 98th minute, I believe, which I must have watched that Jordan Ayew goal about 150 times. Can't lie, but those are the moments we live for, aren't they, as football fans? It's like, if you can't enjoy that, despite how poor we were first half, if you can't enjoy that as a football fan, you're not going to enjoy anything. So it's like, I like a lot of what I see from Steve Cooper, but there are still some real concerns that I have with him. It's like, why do we have to go behind in games to start playing? It's like we set, and I can see you laughing and smiling because it's a conversation that we had, wasn't it? But we
Yeah.
set up not to lose games instead of to go and win games. And I feel like this squad that we've got is better than Steve Cooper gives it credit for in terms of the way that we go and play football. It's like, yes, we're a newly promoted team, but I wouldn't say we're your usual newly promoted team because within our squad, there's a lot of players that have got years of Premier League experience.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good point. Actually, there's a lot of like, I don't know, asterisks about Leicester. You know, there's not really that, like Luton. You know, they were just a plucky team that came up, and no one really thought they were good enough. Ipswich to a point now. Whereas, you know, you guys, you went down kind of unexpectedly. You rose back up, you know, very well in the end. And obviously, you came into this season with quite a lot of well, big question marks really, with the potential points deduction. Obviously, you managed to get away with that one, unlike Forest. We've had that. So yeah.
I didn't ask you this on my channel, and I kind of wish I had. What do you make of Leicester getting away with it? Because I've seen a real mixed response. Because I've seen some of your fans saying it's unfair, it's this and that, and I completely get that. We found a loophole, and it's like, I get where that side's coming from it. I've also seen other sides of like opposition fans saying, "Yeah, stick it to the Premier League," but like that, and that side of it. It's like, where do you sit on it?
Yeah, if I'm honest, it is a bit annoying when us, and I'm sure Everton fans would say the same thing, when both those teams have been given points deductions, and then another team's getting away with it. It is quite annoying in a way, but from what I remember, it was a little bit of a like you say, a loophole, and something that, I don't know, probably wouldn't sit right with a lot of neutral fans or rival fans. So yeah, in a way, I don't really know whether I was like pleased or not to see like a club not getting punished, because you don't really want to see points deductions really. But if anything, it annoyed me more about like the Man City thing. Big clubs, being dragged out for years and years, and then like Leicester immediately potentially being punished. Obviously, then Forest and Everton have been punished. It's just that a whole side of football that just frustrates you, really, isn't it? So that's what I'd say.
And I might be talking unfairly here, and because it's my club, but it's not the side of football we all fell in love with. Battles going on in
Definitely.
the courtroom, and like what's going on off the pitch seems like it's becoming more and more what's talked about compared to what's going on the pitch, and it's like, that's not why you fell in love with going to Forest. That's not why I fell in love with Leicester. And it was me as a kid going to the game with my granddad for the first game, and like, that's what hooks you into your club, not what's going on in the courtroom. But my thing is, and I don't want to sit here going, "Oh, poor old Leicester." Not what I'm trying to say at all. If we got punished and got hit with a points deduction, fully deserved, and I think we couldn't have moaned, and I think it would have been a humbling, but a lot of the higher ups at our club needed, to be honest, because I think they bury their head in the sand, and they're almost like, because of what we've achieved in the past, they think that they can do no wrong now. And I think that was shown with Brendan Rodgers, where it's like, "Oh, we'll be fine. We're too good to go down," this sort of attitude. And it's like, I'm going to sound really arrogant here, and I don't mean to. It's like, with that squad we had, we should have been too good to go down and shouldn't have been anywhere near the bottom of the table. But the whole attitude of the club absolutely stank. From players like Yuri Tielemans, knowing he was going for a year in advance, walking around the pitch. And it's like, how you still... I don't care how good of a player you are. If you are not working hard, you should not be playing. But you knew full well Brendan Rodgers was going to select him, regardless if he dropped a 1 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10. I mean, there's a lot of rumours that players like Harvey Barnes, James Maddison, Castagne all knew from January onwards that they were going. It's like, you could see it in their performances. But when you talk of players like that, like Harvey Barnes is a fantastic player, Maddison's a fantastic player. It's like, I think 3-4 years, probably not even that, was it? 2 years before we finished 5th. The year after that, we were in a European semi-final. It's like, how do you go from that to right down there? It's like, for me, those players just gave up, and it's like it's one thing seeing a team that's, and we both of us have had our share of crap teams that we've had to watch. It's like it's one thing seeing like crap players that are giving everything but just aren't good enough. That team that went down for me was the one that the sort of team that hurt the most that I've seen as a Leicester fan, where it's like you've got ability, you've got talent, you've got everything you need apart from heart, and it's like you go nowhere in football if you're not fully committed. And it's like that ultimately for me is why you guys stayed up and we didn't. Is I will argue with any of your fans, but that our team was 1 to 11 was a better team, but they weren't a team. That was 11 individuals who knew they were off. But right now, this team is giving absolutely everything, and it's like that's all you can ask is as a fan is like give absolutely everything, win, lose, or draw, and 99% of fans I think will accept that and be happy with that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, talking about the points deductions, I've gone out of focus for some reason. Ignore that. If we're talking about the point, there we go. If we're talking about the points deductions, obviously, you know, I think what we did, it was deserved. You know, we broke the rules ultimately, and you know, we managed to get the points total dropped down. I think it was meant to be -6, and we got -4 in the end. If I'm honest, you know, unlike with Leicester, I know you didn't get a points deduction that season, but you know, you had a great team that just gave up. Yeah, with Forest, it's like if we'd gone down last season, I wouldn't have probably looked at it like that. I would have. The only time last season I thought that the players had, what's the word, given up essentially, or you know, down tools, was actually in one of Cooper's last games when we went to Fulham. We lost 5-0. I think other than that, you know, it was always a team giving 100%. At the very least, it was just the same old mistakes that were costing us really. And yeah, I agree. It's that side of football that you just don't really like. You know, the players' politics, and then obviously points deductions. It's just it ruins it really, doesn't it?
It does, but it's like it ruins. It's never the side of football you want to sort of always be talking about. But if we, as I said earlier, if we'd broken the rules and had been given a points deduction, I don't think we could have moaned. It's like we've got away with it on a loophole because the incompetence of the Premier League and the way that the rules are written. So it's one of them. But I almost think last season, it's going to sound really strange, but if there was ever a good time to get a points deduction, which there's never a good time, but I think last season was the best possible time if you were ever going to get one, where the standard of the bottom three was so poor that you knew for ages that 2 out of the 3 teams that were going to go down. So
yeah, we were lucky really in that regard. I mean, you know, I think if we got it the season before, where arguably the 3 that came up, us being one of them with Bournemouth and Fulham, it would have been harder because those 3 were really strong and all stayed up comfortably. Whereas last year, I mean, probably some of the worst teams that have come up, arguably. So yeah, I'm just talking a bit more about the game then, ultimately coming up, which is what we're more interested in. I'm just curious from a Leicester point of view, what do you make of Forest so far this season? Because obviously you were saying to me earlier, reluctantly, I'm impressed with Forest. What do you think really? Because obviously we're doing well, but what's your take?
Yeah, I think you've kicked on massively, and you've established yourself as a Premier League club again, and I think Nuno deserves huge credit for that. I think do you say 8th in the league now, 9th in the league?
Yeah, currently.
So you've picked up some fantastic points away from home. Obviously, the win against Liverpool at Anfield, the point at Chelsea, like those in themselves are very impressive. And you look at some of the players that you guys like. I know you were mocked for it at the time. I never quite got the mocking when you first came up of like some of the players that you brought and the amount you brought. It's like you needed to do it, didn't you? Because half your championship team was a loan team or players that as contracted run out. But I think now that you're starting to settle and establish yourself, you don't need to go over the top with buying huge amounts of players. You just seem to be improving window on window, and like Hudson-Odoi has been a big fan of his for a while. I think we're starting to see a really good player there. Alanga's doing fantastically. Chris Wood is like, he's just going to score against us. He always does, and he's a right handful, isn't he? Anderson, again, you paid a big fee for Anderson, but you're seeing a really good player there. I forget the lad's name, a Portuguese lad, but he looks like Grealish if you brought
Jota Silva.
Yeah, he looks a tidy player as well. So yeah, I've been really impressed with you guys, to be honest, and I say that through gritted teeth. But like, the results don't lie and the table doesn't lie, does it? You guys have been doing very, very well, and again, Nuno deserves huge credit from that. And something else that I think he deserves credit for is your away form and your performances away from home, and particularly under Steve Cooper, but even at the start under Nuno, were absolutely awful. Now, away from home, you guys look like one of those teams that you just never, like, I think all the big clubs particularly are going to think, Forest at home they're going to be a right hard nut to crack. And again, that's what you want to be, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, for sure. Under Cooper and even the Nuno at times, it hasn't been great at all. We've been battered and just outclassed in a lot of games. But like you say, we've been a completely different team away from home this season, and towards the end of last season as well, we picked up a couple of good wins, ultimately against Burnley and Sheffield United. But we deservedly beat them on those days. And this season, it's just gone up a level. And I think a reason for it, as you mentioned, was the recruitment. We had to go crazy when we first came up, which we wouldn't have wanted to have done, but it was needs must ultimately, and that's another topic really. But there was a few grey areas with that, but it was just kind of, if we hadn't done that, we wouldn't have had a squad ultimately. This summer obviously we were a lot more concise with it and planned, and every player who's come in so far has looked really good and impressive. So that's been a big part for us this season. So just looking ahead to the game a bit more then, I just want to know, actually, who would you say are some of your biggest threats to Forest from a Leicester point of view? Because one player I wanted to mention, and you may mention him here, is Buonanotte.
He's unreal.
I've been very impressed.
He is unreal. I don't know how Brighton have let him out on loan. He's like, on the ball, he's fantastic. His technical ability, to beat a man, he can cut inside on his left, or he can go on his right, so both-footed. But he's also a tenacious, really likes getting stuck into tackles, and it's like fans warm to that when they see a player that just will give absolutely everything. But he's got so much ability, and this old saying, "Don't fall in love with a lone player." I feel like that's been thrown out the window.
Yeah. We've been there, obviously, as a Forest fan. Is anyone else that sticks out to you in your team that we should be worried about?
Mavididi and Fatawu. I think they're both dynamic, both love to run at their defenders. I think they both need to start because, again, he's got this obsession with Jordan Ayew, and I know he scored the winner at the end against Southampton, but Fatawu has just absolutely changed that game against Southampton, where I think he came on in the 60th minute, 62nd minute, he got an assist. He was crucial in winning the penalty. He won the corner for the goal at the end. He smashed the crossbar, and it's like everything positive that Leicester did came through Fatawu. So you want to see your best players starting, but again, Cooper's got this obsession with Jordan Ayew. So I'm really hoping that Fatawu and Mavididi start, because I think both of them can cause you problems. And then I know he's 37 now. You can never count out Vardy.
Yeah.
He's not the electric paced player that he was a few years ago. He's still not slow by any means, but he's got that footballing IQ of when to time his runs, when to arrive in the box, where to be. And him playing, I think, opens up so much space for Fatawu and Mavididi because his movement is that good, and it's like he's evolved his game from what he was, and I think any 37-year-old who was dependent on pace in previous years needs to evolve because he doesn't have the legs that he once does, but he's still a fantastic finisher and he's still a real asset to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I find it very impressive how, at 37, he's still just such a clinical player. And obviously coming back up to the Premier League and he's still going strong. As you say, he's going to be different. But he's always going to be a threat, I think, to any team, really. I think just let's talk about our predictions and ultimately for this game this weekend or on Friday. Obviously, we're both coming into it in quite a good place. Obviously, Forest in a particularly good place, but we can't discount the fact that you've won 2 in a row under the lights at the King Power. It's going to be pretty interesting, isn't it?
It's also we've only lost 1 in 6 as well, so
right.
There's been a lot of draws in there. I think the loss was to Arsenal, so when you say it like that, it sounds even better. But 2 wins on the balance is fantastic, and under the lights at the King Power, I think I said this on my channel. Sorry, I think it being a Friday night kickoff under the lights adds a little bit more bite to it and a little bit more needle to it. So I'm hoping that the team can play off that, and it needs to be bouncing from the first minute because I don't know. Did you go to the game at the King Power last time?
No, I didn't.
But, that was absolutely bouncing from minute 1, and because of a performance and because of a result, obviously that then transpires and it carries it on. I think if it's cautious Cooper and we're just trying to stay in the game and play with the handbrake on, that will die down very quickly. But if we get after you, I think that will be bouncing and continue. But something that I wish I'd mentioned on my channel, but I didn't. This is also our remembrance game for our owner because it's would be the 6th year anniversary since the passing, obviously, of the helicopter incident. So I think that will add something to the atmosphere and to the game. So I think with all of that, I'm just hoping that the team sort of rise to the occasion because even if we're playing Southampton at home or anyone at home, because it's the remembrance game of the Chai passing, I think you want to see the team put in a performance that he would have been proud of. The fact that it's you guys as well, I think that adds another layer to it. So with all of that, I'm going to go with my heart over my head here, and I'm going to go 2-1 Leicester, but that is purely my heart.
Yeah. No, I can understand. And, I do think there's, being neutral here, I think there's reasons for Leicester to be optimistic. I do also think there is reasons for us to be optimistic too. So I think it is going to be, hopefully, a really good game. And, one that both sides can go at each other and it can be a good game of football. And I'm sure that Cooper, not that he'd admit it, I'm sure he's probably going to want to try and get one over us, to be honest. So that might add a bit. And then obviously, I'm sure the fans on both sides are going to be interested to see how he performs because of the obvious connection between the 2 clubs now with him. So I think that will add quite a bit, honestly.
You know what I'm dreading? I'm absolutely dreading is if you guys are winning and then you're going to sarcastically start singing your Steve Cooper song and it's going to be Agent Cooper and all of that. You can just see it a mile off, can't you?
That would be amazing, honestly, from my point of view, if that was to happen. Yeah. I said 2-1 Forest on your channel. You said 2-1 on mine, which I could completely see why we would both do that. But just before we go, and let's let everyone know where they can find you.
So Ant's Leicester fan channel, so home and away match day vlogs, match previews, live streams, and just general waffle about Leicester City. So I know, obviously, mainly Forest subscribers over here, but if you like general football content, appreciate you guys coming over and checking it out.
Yeah. Please make sure you do that. Everyone, go and check out and support him. He took time out of his day to do this for me. And yeah, obviously we've done one on his channel too, so go and check that out, of course. And yeah, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Get your thoughts in the comments below about this hopefully good game of football on Friday night. Leicester v Forest. Yeah, looking forward to it. Thank you very much, Amp, for coming on.
Pleasure, mate. Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much. And yeah, we'll see you soon, everyone.